Teen fixes grandfather's old radio, but when he turns it on, he hears a voice he hasn't heard in years. Tyler Johnson had spent 3 days trying to convince his grandfather to let him tinker with the dusty radio stored in the living room cabinet. The device had been silent for 15 years, ever since his grandmother Margaret passed away, and old Walter always said it wasn't worth fixing, but when the 16-year-old finally got the radio working, everything changed. As he turned the dial, searching for a station, a soft woman's voice echoed through the speakers, singing a lullaby that made his heart race. It was identical to the voice he held in his deepest memories, the voice of his mother, Melissa, who had left when he was just 2 years old. "Grandpa, come here quick," Tyler shouted, not taking his eyes off the radio. Walter dropped the newspaper on the kitchen table and walked into the living room. But when he heard the melody coming from the radio, his face lost all color. His hands trembled as he moved closer, as if seeing a ghost. "Turn that off, boy," he said, his voice choked. "But Grandpa, that's my mom's voice, I'm sure of it," Tyler insisted, turning up the volume. The song continued, clear and crisp, filling every corner of their modest home in Savannah. It was a song Melissa had always sung to him before bed in the few years they had together. Walter stepped closer to the radio and turned it off with a sharp motion. "This can't be," the old man murmured, running a hand through his gray hair. "This radio's been broken for years." Tyler didn't understand his grandfather's reaction. Why was he so upset? It was just an old song that must have been recorded somewhere in the device. But something in Walter's eyes told him there was much more to it. "I'm going to look inside," the teenager said, grabbing the tools he'd used to fix the radio. "Don't touch it, Tyler, leave it alone." Walter tried to stop him, but his grandson was already opening the radio again. That's when Tyler found something that would change everything. Hidden behind the electronics was a small cassette tape. He carefully pulled it out and showed it to his grandfather, who turned even paler. "What is this?" the boy asked. Walter tried to take the tape from him, but Tyler was faster. He ran to his room where he kept a small tape recorder he'd gotten for his birthday. He inserted the tape and pressed play. His mother's voice echoed again, but this time it wasn't a song. It was a conversation between Melissa and someone else. "Dad, I can't do this. I can't marry Richard just because you think it's best for the family. Melissa, you don't understand. He has a good position. He can give you and Tyler a good life. But I don't love him, Dad, and you know that." Tyler felt the world spin. His mother had secretly recorded conversations with his grandfather, conversations about a marriage she didn't want, conversations that revealed secrets he never imagined existed. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. The bedroom door burst open and Walter stormed in, his face red with anger and worry. "Give me that tape, Tyler. You don't understand what you're hearing." "I don't understand." The boy stood up, clutching the recorder to his chest. "Then explain it to me, Grandpa. Explain why my mum was talking about a forced marriage. Explain why you wanted her to marry someone she didn't love." Walter sighed deeply and sat on the bed, looking like he'd aged 10 years in minutes. "You were too young. You don't remember how hard things were back then," he began, his voice weary. "Your grandmother was sick, needing expensive medicine, and I could barely pay the bills with my salary from the repair shop. And that justifies forcing my mother to marry?" Tyler questioned, still disbelieving. Richard was the son of the owner of the textile mill, a wealthy, respected family. He had liked Melissa since they were teenagers and made a serious proposal. "He said he'd help our family if she agreed to marry him." Walter's voice trembled as he spoke. Tyler continued the tape and heard more details of the conversation between his mother and grandfather. "Dad, I love Frank. We have plans together. We want to build a real family. Frank is a dreamer, Melissa. He lives off odd jobs playing guitar in the squares. What future can he offer you and my grandchild? The future we choose together. That's worth more than all the money in the world." Tyler stopped the tape and looked at his grandfather with a mix of anger and sadness. "Frank? Who's Frank?" Walter lowered his head, avoiding his grandson's gaze. "Your real father," he finally admitted. "A good, hard-working young man, but I didn't think he could support a family." "My real father." Tyler felt his legs weaken. But you always said he abandoned us. I lied, Walter confessed, tears running down his wrinkled face. I lied because I was afraid of losing you, afraid I couldn't support the family alone, afraid of making the wrong choices. The teenager kept playing the tape, uncovering more details of the story he'd never known. His mother had planned to run away with Frank, but Walter intercepted their letters, preventing them from meeting. When Melissa found out, there was a terrible argument. On the recording, her sobs and pleas for her father to understand her feelings were clear. At the time, Walter remained unmoved, insisting she should think of the family's well-being. "Where is she now?" Tyler asked, trying to control his emotions. "I don't know," Walter replied. "After that fight, she left home with just a few clothes. She said she'd come back when I understood her love for Frank was real." "And you never tried to find her?" "I did at first, but my pride was stronger than my longing. I thought she should be the one to come back and apologize." Tyler kept exploring the radio and found more tapes hidden in compartments only someone familiar with the device would discover. There were 12 in total, all labeled from 15 years ago. The second tape revealed something even more shocking, a secretly recorded conversation between Melissa and her grandmother, Margaret. "Mom, I need your help. Dad isn't listening to me. Sweetheart, I understand your heart, but your father is worried about your future. Mom, I'm pregnant again." Tyler stopped the tape immediately. His mother had been pregnant when she left. Did that mean he might have a brother or sister out there? "Grandpa, was Mom expecting another baby when she left?" Walter stopped crying and looked at his grandson in surprise. "How do you know that?" "It's here on the tape. She told Grandma Margaret." The old man covered his face with his hands. "It was a girl. Your sister was born 7 months after your mother left." "And where are they?" Tyler raised his voice, a mix of anger and desperation rising. "I don't know, son. I really don't." The third tape held Grandma Margaret's voice, seemingly recorded when she was already ill. "Walter, you need to find our daughter. You need to find our granddaughters. I won't be here much longer, and I don't want to carry this pain with me. Margaret, you know I tried. They don't want to be found. You didn't try hard enough. Your pride kept you from searching properly. Promise me you'll find them. I promise, my dear. I promise." Tyler looked at his grandfather with a mix of pain and accusation. "You promised Grandma you'd look for them. What happened to that promise?" Walter got up from the bed and walked to the window, gazing at the quiet street of Savannah. "After your grandmother passed, I was lost. You were little, needed care, and I barely knew how to be a father, let alone a grandfather. I let time slip by, and the longer it went, the harder it got." The teenager kept listening to the tapes. On one of them, he discovered that Frank had searched for Melissa back then, but Walter had kicked him out, saying she had married another man and moved far away. "You lied to my father too?" Tyler asked, stunned. "I thought I was protecting you," Walter defended himself. "I figured if he never came back, it would be better for everyone." "Better for who, Grandpa?" "For me, who grew up without a father or mother. For them, who never saw each other again? Or better for you, who didn't want to admit you were wrong." The argument was interrupted by the arrival of Catherine, Walter's younger sister, who visited them every week. She heard the raised voices from the street and entered the house worried. "What's going on here?" she asked, seeing their emotional state. Tyler looked at his great-aunt, who had always been kind to him, and decided to tell her everything. He showed her the tapes, explained what he'd discovered, and shared his frustration over the lies he'd heard his whole life. Catherine listened quietly, but her expression made it clear she knew more than she'd ever shared. "Aunt Catherine, do you know where my mother is?" Tyler asked directly. The 65-year-old woman looked at her older brother with sadness and disapproval. "Walter, it's time to tell this boy the truth." "Catherine, stay out of this." The old man tried to cut her off. "No, Walter, this has gone on long enough. Tyler has the right to know." Catherine sat beside her great-nephew and held his hands. "Your grandfather has known where your mother is for over 10 years, she revealed. Tyler felt like he'd been punched in the gut. "What do you mean?" "Your mother tried to reach out many times. She sent letters, tried calling, even came here once when you were 8. But your grandfather always sent her away." Walter turned sharply to his sister. Catherine, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, she shot back. I understand you let your pride get in the way of loving your family. Tyler was shaking with anger. She came here? My mother came here, and you never told me? You were little, Walter tried to explain. I thought it would confuse you. Confuse me, the teenager shouted. More confusing than growing up believing my mother abandoned me? Catherine kept revealing details she'd kept secret for years. Melissa had married Frank soon after leaving home, and they had a daughter, Mary Elizabeth, now 14. The family lived in Austin, where Frank worked as a music teacher at a private school. Is she happy? Tyler asked through tears. Yes, my boy, but she never forgot you. Every time she came here or sent a letter, she asked about you, how you were doing in school, if you were growing up well. And my father? Frank? He always wanted to meet you. They never understood why Walter kept them away. Tyler looked at his grandfather with a mix of love and disappointment. Despite the anger, he knew Walter had raised him with care, flaws and all. Why did you do this to me, Grandpa? Why did you lie all these years? Walter sank heavily into the armchair, looking like he carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. Because I was afraid of losing you too, she admitted with a shaky voice. After Melissa left and Margaret got sick, you were all I had left. I thought if your parents came back, they'd take you away and I'd be left alone. But that didn't give you the right to lie, Tyler said, trying to steady his voice. I know I was wrong, but I didn't know how to fix it. The longer it went on, the harder it became to admit the truth. Catherine stood up and went to a drawer in the dresser, pulling out a yellowed envelope. Your mother gave me this the last time she was here 2 years ago, she said, handing it to Tyler. She asked me to give it to you when you turned 16. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. With trembling hands, Tyler opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter and a photograph. In the photo, he saw a beautiful woman with brown hair standing beside a kind-looking man holding a girl who appeared to be about 12 at the time. The letter read, My dear Tyler, if you're reading this, it means you've finally discovered the truth about our family. I know you must be confused and maybe even angry, but I want you to know that I never, not for a single second, stopped loving you. When I left, it wasn't because I didn't love you. It was because I needed to fight for the right to choose my own path and for the right to give you a father who truly loved you. Your father, Frank, has always wanted to meet you. He has a collection of gifts he bought for every one of your birthdays, waiting for the day we could finally be together. Your sister, Mary Elizabeth, dreams of meeting her big brother. She has your stubborn streak and your smile. If you want to meet us, we'll be waiting with open arms. But if you decide it's better to stay with your grandfather, we'll understand. We just want you to be happy. With all the love in the world, Mom, Melissa. At the bottom of the letter was an address in Austin and a phone number. Tyler finished reading with tears streaming down his face. He looked at Catherine, then at Walter. Can I call her? Catherine nodded, but Walter stood abruptly. Wait, Tyler. Let me talk to her first. Let me apologize. No, Grandpa. First, I want to talk to my mom. The teenager picked up the house phone and dialed the number with shaking fingers. After a few rings, a woman's voice answered. Hello? It was the same voice from the tapes. Tyler recognized it instantly but couldn't speak. Hello? Is anyone there? The voice repeated. Mom? He managed to whisper. There was silence on the other end. Then the sound of someone sitting down and taking a deep breath. Tyler? Is that you, my son? It's me, Mom. Oh my God, she began to cry. How did you get my number? It's a long story. Aunt Catherine gave me your letter. You read the letter. You know everything. I found the tapes you hid in Grandma's radio. I found out about Frank, about my sister, about everything. On the other end of the line, Melissa was sobbing. Can you forgive me, son? Can you forgive me for taking so long for us to finally talk? Mum, I want to meet you. I want to meet my dad and my sister. Oh, my sweet boy, of course, whenever you want. We can meet wherever you feel most comfortable. Tyler looked at Walter, who was listening to the whole conversation with his heart in his hands. Can you come here? I think Grandpa needs to talk to you too." Melissa hesitated for a moment. "Are you sure? Your grandfather made it very clear he didn't want to see us." "He changed his mind," Tyler said, looking straight at Walter. "Right, Grandpa." The old man nodded, unable to speak. "Then come, please. We'll be there tomorrow morning," Melissa promised. "Tyler?" "Yes, Mom." "I love you so much. I always have." "I love you too, Mom." After hanging up the phone, the house fell silent. Catherine hugged Tyler and Walter remained seated in the armchair, processing everything that had happened. "How do you feel?" Catherine asked her great-nephew. "I don't know. It's a lot to take in at once. 15 years of lies crumbling in a single day." "And you, Walter?" She turned to her brother. "Scared," he admitted. "Afraid they'll never forgive me. Afraid of losing Tyler." Tyler walked over to his grandfather and knelt beside the armchair. "Grandpa, I'm not going anywhere. You raised me, loved me, taught me so much. That won't change just because I'm about to meet my parents now. But you have every right to hate me. I don't hate you. I'm hurt, yes. You lied to me my whole life. But I also know you did it because you were afraid." Walter held his grandson's hand. "I'll try to make things right. I'll ask your mother and Frank for forgiveness. I'll try to be the grandfather you deserve." That night, Tyler barely slept. He kept imagining what it would be like to meet his parents and sister. Would Frank be like he'd pictured? Would Mary Elizabeth like him? And how would Melissa feel returning to the house she'd grown up in after 15 years? The next morning, Catherine arrived early to help tidy the house. Walter was nervous, rearranging furniture and trying to make everything perfect. "Stop fussing, Walter," said Catherine. "They're not coming to judge your house." "I just want everything to be right," he replied, adjusting the sofa cushions for the third time. Tyler sat at the kitchen table, listening again to some of the tapes he'd found in the radio. He wanted to understand his parents' story better, to learn the details of a romance cut short by fear and pride. At 10 in the morning, a car pulled up in front of the house. Tyler looked out the window and saw a woman stepping out of the passenger seat. It was her, his mother. Older than in the photograph, but with the same gentle smile he remembered. From the driver's side emerged a medium-built man with graying hair and a kind expression. That must be Frank. And from the back seat came a curly-haired teenager with curious eyes, Mary Elizabeth. Tyler's legs felt weak. Walter rose from the armchair, straightened his shirt, and took a deep breath. "They're here," Catherine announced unnecessarily. The doorbell rang, but no one moved for a few seconds. Finally, Tyler walked to the door and opened it. Melissa stood there, on the threshold she'd last crossed 15 years ago. Her eyes filled with tears as she saw her teenage son, tall, handsome, and barely recognizable. "Tyler," she whispered. "Hi, Mum." They embraced right there in the doorway as Frank and Mary Elizabeth waited respectfully. It was a hug of 15 years of longing, 15 years of unshed tears, 15 years of love that never died. "Let me look at you," Melissa said, cradling her son's face in her hands. "You've grown so much, so handsome. You look like your father." Frank stepped forward timidly. "Hi, Tyler. I'm Frank." The teenager looked at the man who was his biological father. There was a resemblance in the eyes and the shape of the face that he'd never noticed when looking in the mirror. "Hi, Dad," he said, testing the word he'd never used for anyone but Walter. Frank smiled, his eyes brimming with tears. "I've waited 15 years to hear that." Mary Elizabeth approached, a little shy but curious. "So, you're my brother?" she asked with a playful grin. "I am. And you're even prettier than in the photo." "What photo?" "The one that came with Mum's letter." They stepped inside, and the atmosphere grew heavy when Walter appeared in the living room. Melissa stopped talking and looked at her father. Frank grew tense, remembering the humiliations he had suffered 15 years earlier. "Daddy," said Melissa, her voice a mix of sorrow and longing. "Sweetheart," replied Walter, barely able to hold her gaze. The silence that followed was heavy, weighed down by 15 years of pain, wounded pride, and unspoken words. It was Mary Elizabeth who broke the tense mood. "Grandpa, you have such a cool radio. Tyler told me that's how he found out everything. Walter looked at the granddaughter he was meeting for the first time, and his heart swelled with emotion. You want to see the radio?" "Yes, I do." Catherine, who had remained discreet until then, stepped forward. "How about I make some coffee for everyone? I think we have a lot to talk about." Over the next few hours, the family talked like they never had before. Melissa shared about her life in Austin, how she had reconnected with Frank after a few months, how they had married and built a family. Frank spoke about his work as a music teacher, how he had always thought of Tyler, and how he had kept birthday gifts he could never deliver. Mary Elizabeth, with teenage spontaneity, asked direct questions the adults didn't dare to. She wanted to know why her grandfather had kept the family apart, why Tyler didn't know he had a sister, why everything had been so complicated. "Grandpa was afraid," explained Tyler. "Afraid of being alone, afraid of making the wrong choices." "But isn't family about sticking together?" asked Mary Elizabeth. "It is," replied Walter, "and it took me 15 years to understand that." The hardest moment came when Walter finally addressed Frank directly. "I owe you an apology," said the older man, his voice choked. "I treated you poorly, humiliated you, kept you from the woman you loved and the son you had together. I was wrong." Frank looked at the man who had caused him so much pain and saw not the proud adversary from 15 years ago, but a remorseful grandfather who had paid dearly for his mistakes. "Mr. Walter, I made mistakes too. I could have pushed harder, could have found other ways to reach out. Sometimes I let my hurt speak louder." "You were right to love my daughter," Walter admitted, "and I was wrong to stand in your way." Melissa, who had stayed quiet during the men's exchange, finally spoke. "Dad, I missed you all these years. Even with all the hurt, even knowing you were wrong. I missed my father. And I missed my daughter," Walter replied. "I missed seeing my grandson grow up with a full family. I missed getting to know my granddaughter. I let pride steal 15 years from us. But now we're here," said Catherine, watching with a full heart. "Now we can make up for lost time." "Can I ask something?" said Mary Elizabeth, looking at Tyler. "How did you live without knowing you had a sister?" Tyler smiled at the bluntness of the question. "I always felt like something was missing in my life. Now I know what it was." "And how did you live without knowing you had a brother?" he shot back. "Mom always talked about you, said we'd meet one day. I thought you must be really boring since it took you so long to visit." Everyone laughed, and for the first time since they arrived, the atmosphere felt truly light. Frank, who had been quietly observing the exchange, turned to Tyler. "Son, I brought something for you," he said, stepping out to retrieve something from the car. When he returned, he was holding a guitar. "I bought this when you turned 10. Every time I played, I imagined teaching you how." Tyler took the instrument carefully. He had never learned to play the guitar, but he had always felt an inexplicable curiosity about music. "Can you teach me now? It would be an honor." Frank showed his son the first chords, and to everyone's surprise, Tyler displayed a natural ease with the instrument. Within minutes, he could already play a simple melody. "You have a gift," Frank said proudly. "Seems like it runs in the family," Melissa remarked with a smile. Walter watched everything in silence, processing the scene he never imagined he'd witness. His grandson learning guitar from his biological father, his daughter smiling again in his home, his granddaughter filling the room with laughter. "Tyler," Walter called, "come here for a moment." The teenager approached his grandfather, still holding the guitar. "What is it, Grandpa?" "I want you to know that no matter what happens now, you'll always be my grandson. You're the boy I helped raise, the one who taught me how to be a grandfather, who kept me company when I was alone." "And you'll always be my grandpa," Tyler replied. "The man who taught me to ride a bike, who drove me to school when it rained, who made Brigadeiro when I was sad." "You two aren't getting rid of each other that easily," Melissa said, stepping closer. "Dad, I didn't come here to take Tyler away. I came so our family could exist again." "What do you mean?" Walter asked. "Austin isn't far. We can visit, spend holidays together, let Tyler meet his cousins, let you get to know your granddaughter better." "Cousins?" Tyler asked. Frank has two brothers who also have kids, Melissa explained. You have a much bigger family than you think. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The rest of the day flew by. Frank and Tyler spent hours playing guitar together, while Melissa and Walter talked about the lost years. Mary Elizabeth explored the house, fascinated to see where her mother had grown up. "Mom, show me your childhood room," the girl asked. Melissa took her daughter to the small room that had been hers during her childhood and teenage years. Walter had kept everything exactly as she left it 15 years ago. "Dad, why didn't you change anything?" Melissa asked, moved. "Because I always hoped you'd come back," he replied simply. That night, the family decided to have dinner together. Catherine, Frank, and Mary Elizabeth volunteered to cook, while Melissa, Walter, and Tyler kept talking in the living room. "Mum, can I ask you something?" Tyler said. "Of course, son. Do you really forgive me for staying with Grandpa all these years, for not trying to find you?" Melissa held her son's hands. "Tyler, you were a child. You couldn't have known we were trying to reach you. Besides, your grandfather loved and took care of you. That's what matters. But what if I want to spend time with you in Austin?" "That would be wonderful," Frank chimed in as he approached. "But only if your grandpa agrees." Walter, who had been listening, spoke up. "Tyler can spend holidays with you. He can see the school where Frank works, learn more about music, but..." "But what, Grandpa?" "But I want you all to come here too. I want to get to know my granddaughter better, talk more with Frank, and have my daughter back." "That's what I want most, Dad," Melissa said, hugging Walter. During dinner, Mary Elizabeth made a suggestion that surprised everyone. "Why don't we start a family band? Daddy plays guitar, Tyler's learning, I can sing, and Mum can too, even Grandpa can join." "I don't know how to play anything," Walter said, laughing. "But you can learn," his granddaughter insisted. "It's never too late to start." "She's right," Frank agreed. "I can teach everyone." "And we can play the songs from the tapes," suggested Tyler. "The ones Mum used to sing to me when I was little." The idea pleased everyone. It was a way to turn painful memories into something beautiful and healing. When it was time for Frank, Melissa, and Mary Elizabeth to return to Austin, the goodbyes were very different from the separations of the past. This time, there were concrete plans to meet again. "Next week is Tyler's birthday," Catherine reminded them. "Why don't you come back so we can celebrate together?" "Really?" asked Mary Elizabeth, excited. "Can we throw a party?" "Of course we can," said Walter. "And I want to make the cake. Grandpa makes the best chocolate cake in the area," Tyler told his sister. "Now I understand why you stayed here all these years," Mary Elizabeth teased. At the moment of departure, Tyler hugged his parents and sister with a feeling he'd never experienced before, the certainty that he'd see them again soon. "Dad," he said to Frank, "thank you for waiting for me all these years." "Thank you for giving me the chance to be your father now," Frank replied. "Mom," he said to Melissa, "thank you for never giving up on me." "I could never give up on my firstborn," she answered, kissing his forehead. "And you, Mary," he said to his sister, "thank you for giving me an even bigger family." "Thank you for giving me an older brother to protect me," she replied, hugging him tightly. After they left, Tyler and Walter stayed on the porch, watching the car drive away. "How do you feel, my grandson?" "Whole," Tyler answered. "For the first time in my life, I feel whole. And I feel forgiven," said Walter. "I didn't deserve it, but I feel forgiven. Grandpa, we all deserve a second chance." That night, Tyler tinkered with the old radio again. He discovered another tape that had gone unnoticed at first. It was a recording of his grandmother Margaret, made just days before her passing. "Walter, if you're hearing this, it means Tyler found the tapes I asked Melissa to hide in the radio. I knew one day he'd be curious enough to fiddle with it and discover the truth. My dear husband, you made mistakes, but always out of love. Love for me, love for Tyler, fear of losing those you love. But true love doesn't bind. It sets free. I hope when you hear this, our family is together again. I hope you found the strength to ask for forgiveness and to forgive. Take care of each other. Life is too short to hold grudges. I love you forever, Margaret." Tyler called Walter to listen to the recording. When it ended, both were crying. "Grandma knew this would happen one day," said Tyler. "Your grandmother was always wiser than me," Walter admitted. "She wanted the tapes to be found. She wanted the truth to come out. She wanted our family to reunite. And she succeeded, even after 15 years. In the months that followed, Tyler's life changed completely. He spent holidays in Austin, met his paternal uncles and cousins, studied music with Frank, and built a close relationship with Mary Elizabeth. Walter changed too. He let go of the pride that had harmed him for so long and worked to rebuild his relationship with his daughter. He learned to play guitar with Frank and discovered it was never too late to learn new things. Catherine was key in the reconciliation process, acting as a mediator whenever misunderstandings or tensions arose. The family music group became a reality. They performed at the church festival in Savannah, playing the songs from the old tapes and new ones they composed together. Tyler Johnson discovered he had a natural talent, not just for playing the guitar, but also for composing. He wrote a song about his family's story, which became everyone's favorite. A year after discovering the tapes, the family decided to hold a special celebration. It was the 15th anniversary of his grandmother, Margaret's passing, but this time it would be a celebration of her life and how she had managed to bring the family together even after she was gone. Melissa, Frank, and Mary Elizabeth came to spend a week in Savannah. Walter had prepared the house to comfortably accommodate everyone, turning the old sewing room into a bedroom for his granddaughter. "Grandpa, the house looks beautiful," said Mary Elizabeth, admiring the changes. "I wanted you all to feel at home here too," Walter explained. During that special week, many important things happened. Frank officially adopted Tyler, giving him the right to use his last name if he wanted. The teenager chose to keep Johnson, but added Stewart, becoming Tyler Johnson Stewart. Walter made sure to show Frank all the photos of Tyler growing up, sharing stories about the childhood and adolescence of the son he had helped raise. "You did a good job," Frank said. "Tyler is a kind, smart, and caring boy. You should be proud." "We did a good job," Walter corrected. "He's our son." Melissa spent hours organizing old family photos with her father, creating albums that included everyone: her and Frank, Tyler and Mary Elizabeth, Walter and Margaret, Catherine. "Dad, look at this," she said, showing him a photo from her teenage years. "Back then, I thought I knew everything about life. And I thought I knew what was best for you," Walter replied. "We were both wrong. But we learned," she smiled, "and that's what matters." Mary Elizabeth easily fit in with Tyler's friends in Savannah. She had an outgoing, charismatic personality that won everyone over. Some of Tyler's friends even joked that they wanted to trade siblings. "Don't even think about it," Tyler said, laughing. "It took me 15 years to meet this sister. I'm not sharing her with you." During the visit, Tyler made an important decision. He decided he wanted to study music in college and follow in his father's footsteps. Frank was moved by the choice but made sure to say he'd support whatever his son decided. "Music is a tough field," Frank warned. "It takes a lot of study and dedication." "Dad, you made it. Why wouldn't I?" "You will make it," Walter said. "And when you're teaching at the university, I'll be in the front row watching." The week passed too quickly for everyone's liking. On the night before they left, the family held a special musical gathering in the backyard, complete with a barbecue prepared by Frank and a chocolate cake baked by Walter. Neighbors and friends were invited to watch. Mrs. Blackwell, the 90-year-old neighbor who had known the family for decades, was moved to see the reconciliation. "Margaret must be so happy up there," she told Walter. "She always knew you'd find your way back to each other." "You're right," Walter agreed. "My wife was far wiser than me." The performance included songs from the tapes, some classic American tunes, and 2 original compositions by Tyler. The first, called Radio of the Heart, told the story of how the tapes were discovered. The second, Family Reunited, was about forgiveness, second chances, and love that transcends time and distance. When it was time to sing Family Reunited, everyone was emotional. Tyler played guitar, Frank harmonized, Melissa and Mary Elizabeth sang the chorus, and Walter, who had learned to play the tambourine, kept the rhythm. The audience gave them a standing ovation. Catherine wept with emotion, and several neighbors said it was the most beautiful performance they had ever seen. "You should record an album," suggested the music teacher at the school where Tyler studied. Maybe one day, said Frank. For now we play for love. And love is what moves everything, added Melissa. On the morning of their departure, Tyler walked his family to the car with his heart torn between joy and longing. It was wonderful to have found his whole family, but it was still hard to say goodbye. Next vacation, you'll come stay with us in Austin, said Mary Elizabeth. I want to introduce you to all my friends. And I want to see the school where Dad works, said Tyler. You'll love it, Frank assured him. And who knows, maybe we'll apply to the same music college. That would be a dream, Tyler admitted. Melissa said goodbye to her father with a long, tight hug. Dad, thank you for taking such good care of my son all these years. Thank you for forgiving me and giving me a second chance to be a father and grandfather. We're family, she said simply, and family forgives. After they left, Walter and Tyler returned home and listened to the old tapes on the restored radio. It was a way to stay connected to Margaret and remember how it all began. Grandpa, do you think Grandma knew things would turn out this way? Your grandmother was always optimistic, Walter replied. She believed love always wins in the end. And it really did. Yes, it did, my grandson. It really did. 2 years later, Tyler was graduating high school and preparing to apply to music school. His family had grown even larger. Frank and Melissa had made their union official in an intimate ceremony in Savannah, with Walter walking his daughter down the aisle. Mary Elizabeth, now 16, was a talented teenager considering an artistic career. She and Tyler had developed a musical partnership that produced increasingly elaborate compositions. Walter, now 75, had become a more present and affectionate grandfather. He had not only learned to play the tambourine, but also a few basic guitar chords. His greatest joy was when the whole family gathered to make music together. Catherine remained the cornerstone of the family, always ready to mediate conflicts and offer wise advice. She had become a second grandmother to Mary Elizabeth and a confidant to Melissa. The old radio still worked perfectly and had become a sort of family symbol. Every time they gathered, someone would turn it on to listen to music or reminisce over the tapes that had changed everything. One day, while cleaning the radio, Tyler found another hidden tape, this time in a compartment discovered by chance. It was an even older recording from the time when Walter and Margaret were young and in love. On the tape, Margaret sang a love song to Walter, the same song she had taught Melissa, the one Melissa sang to Tyler when he was little. It was a family tradition lost to time and now rediscovered. Grandpa, look what I found, Tyler said, showing him the tape. When they listened to the recording, Walter cried as he hadn't in years. It was Margaret's young voice, full of life and hope, singing the song that had become the family's trademark. She was so beautiful, Walter murmured, so full of dreams. And she fulfilled her greatest one, said Tyler. To see our family united. How do you know? Because she left the right clues for it to happen. She knew one day I'd tinker with this radio and discover everything. Your grandmother was always smarter than me, Walter admitted, smiling through his tears. That night, Tyler called his parents and told them about the new discovery. They were so moved that they decided to come to Savannah over the weekend to listen to the recording together. When the whole family gathered again, they held a special session where each one sang Grandma Margaret's song in their own way. It was the same melody, but interpreted with the personality of every family member. Now I understand why this song always felt familiar to me, said Melissa. Mom used to sing it to me when I was little. I sang it to Tyler, and now both of you can sing it to your children someday. It's a family tradition, said Mary Elizabeth. A beautiful tradition, and one that will never be lost again, promised Tyler. Frank, who had stayed quiet watching everyone's emotions, spoke up. Family, I want to propose something. How about we actually record an album? Not to sell, but to preserve our story, so our descendants can know these songs and these memories. The idea was unanimously accepted. They spent the next few months planning and preparing what would become the Johnson-Stewart family album. The project included songs from the old tapes, Tyler's original compositions, some traditional American songs that had marked their lives, and even an instrumental version of Happy Birthday played by Walter on the tambourine, because it was the song he loved playing most at family gatherings. The recording was done in a small but professional studio in Austin. Frank used his music industry connections to get a special rate, and the whole family actively participated in the process. Walter, who had never been in a recording studio before, was amazed by the technology. Mary Elizabeth had fun doing the backup vocals. Melissa got emotional recording the lullaby she used to sing to Tyler again. And Tyler felt fulfilled seeing his compositions come to life with the whole family's involvement. The album was finished by the end of the year, just in time to be the family's Christmas gift. They held a release party in Savannah, inviting all their neighbors and friends. "This album is more than just music," Tyler said during the celebration. "It represents our journey of reconnection, our ability to forgive, and our strength as a family. It also represents Grandma Margaret's wisdom," added Walter, who, even after passing, managed to bring us together through the tapes she kept so lovingly. Catherine, who had been essential in the whole reconciliation process, was honored with a special track on the album, a recorded conversation where she shared family memories and gave advice for future generations. "Aunt Catherine, you're the living memory of our family," said Melissa. "Without you, none of this would have been possible." "I just helped love find its way," Catherine replied modestly. The album became a local success. Several radio stations in Savannah and the surrounding area played the songs, and the family's story made the local newspaper. Some people from other towns even sought them out to hear the story firsthand. But for the Johnson Stewarts, the most important thing wasn't public recognition. It was the fact that they had turned years of pain and separation into unity and joy. Tyler passed his music school entrance exam in Austin and moved closer to his parents, but kept the habit of visiting Walter every week. Mary Elizabeth also applied for performing arts in the same city, creating a new family dynamic where the two siblings studied together. Walter, who had initially feared losing his grandson, discovered he had gained a much bigger family. His home in Savannah became the gathering place for everyone, especially during holidays and vacations. Frank continued teaching music and began incorporating the Johnson Stewart family story as an example of how music can bring people together. His students always got emotional when he told them about the hidden tapes in the radio. Melissa picked up some hobbies she had abandoned in her youth, especially painting. She created a series of paintings depicting important moments in the family's history, including the day Tyler discovered the tapes. Catherine remained the family's counselor and mediator, always ready to resolve small conflicts and celebrate each member's victories. The old radio earned a place of honor in Walter's living room and was religiously turned on every Sunday when the family gathered for lunch. It became a tradition for each person to choose a song to play while they prepared the meal together. 3 years after the discovery of the tapes, Tyler was in his final year of college and had started dating a classmate named Isabella, a talented pianist who was quickly embraced by the family. "She plays the piano like an angel," said Mary Elizabeth, "and she's almost as stubborn as Tyler." "Perfect match," Frank joked. Isabella was fascinated by the family's story and asked to include piano in some of Tyler's compositions. They began performing as a duo, playing the songs born from the family's reconciliation. "Your family is inspiring," Isabella told Tyler. "The way you all overcame so many hardships and found your way back to each other is beautiful." "It wasn't easy," Tyler admitted. "There were years of hurt, wounded pride, unspoken words, but love won in the end. And your grandmother's wisdom. Grandma Margaret knew the truth would come out one day. She planted the right seeds to make it happen." During one of Isabella's visits to Savannah, Walter took her to see Margaret's grave. It was a simple but well-kept place where the family often gathered on important dates. "She would have loved you," Walter told Isabella. "Margaret always said Tyler would find a special girl." "How did she know?" "My wife had a sixth sense for these things. She said she could feel when something good was about to happen in the family." Isabella left flowers on the grave and silently promised to take good care of the grandson Margaret had loved so much. At the end of that year, Tyler graduated with honors in music and decided to follow in Frank's footsteps, becoming a teacher. His graduation was a celebration for the whole family, complete with a special musical performance by the Johnson Stewarts. "Son, you fulfilled a dream I didn't even know I had," Frank said, hugging Tyler after the ceremony. "What do you mean?" I always wanted to raise a musician, but I never imagined it would be my own son. Now you'll have to put up with me as a colleague, Tyler teased. It'll be an honor. Mary Elizabeth, who had finished high school, decided to study advertising but kept music as a hobby. She and Tyler continued composing together, creating songs about the challenges and joys of youth. At 70, Catherine decided to write a book telling the family's story. With Melissa's help, she had a knack for writing. She began organizing decades of memories into an account that could be passed down to future generations. "Auntie, you're going to be famous," Tyler joked. "I just want our great-grandchildren to know our story," Catherine replied. "I want them to know that family is about forgiveness, understanding, and unconditional love." The book became therapy for the whole family. Everyone contributed their memories and perspectives, creating a rich and moving account spanning 3 generations. Walter initially struggled to talk about the mistakes he'd made, but with the family's support, he managed to be honest about his failures and the personal growth he'd experienced. "It's hard to admit I was wrong for so long," he said during one of their writing sessions. "But if my story can help other families avoid making the same mistakes, then going through all of this was worth it." The book was completed 2 years later and self-published by the family. They held a small launch in Savannah, donating copies to the town library and some schools. The Johnson-Stewart family story became a local example of family reconciliation and overcoming differences. Several families in the area sought out Catherine for advice on resolving family conflicts. "You've become a sort of family therapist," said Melissa, laughing. "I just tell our story," Catherine replied. "People draw their own conclusions." 5 years after the tapes were discovered, Tyler and Isabella married in a beautiful ceremony held in Walter's backyard, the same place where the family had first performed music together. The celebration was small but full of meaning. Frank played guitar during the ceremony, Mary Elizabeth sang, Melissa arranged the flowers, Catherine organized the buffet with the neighbors' help, and Walter walked Tyler down the aisle. "Grandpa, thank you for being both a father and grandfather to me," Tyler said in his speech. "Thank you for teaching me to be a better person," Walter replied, moved. "Now you're going to be a great grandpa," Mary Elizabeth teased. "Only if you all behave," Walter shot back, making everyone laugh. Isabella was officially adopted by the Johnson-Stewart family that day, gaining not just a husband, but an entire musical and loving family. During the celebration, they played all the family's special songs, including Grandma Margaret's song, which had become a tradition at every important gathering. "Margaret is here with us," Catherine said, looking at the starry sky. "You can be sure of that." "How do you know?" Isabella asked. "Because I smell her perfume every time we play that song," Catherine answered simply. And everyone else felt it too. It was as if Margaret were there, blessing the union and celebrating another victory for the family she had helped bring back together. A year after the wedding, Tyler and Isabella welcomed their first child, a baby girl they named Margaret, in honor of the great-grandmother she would never meet, but who had made her existence possible. Little Margaret brought even more joy to the family. Walter, now 80, discovered that being a great-grandfather was even better than he'd imagined. "She'll grow up hearing the family's stories," Melissa said, rocking her granddaughter. "She'll know from an early age the importance of forgiveness and family unity. And she'll learn music before she even learns to talk," Frank joked. "Like all of us should have," Tyler added. Little Margaret thrived in an environment full of music and love. By 6 months, she was already fascinated by the sounds of the guitar and piano. At 2, she tried singing along during family music sessions. Mary Elizabeth, who had graduated in advertising and worked at an agency in Austin, was the most attentive and loving aunt a child could have. She always came up with creative games and taught her niece new songs. "Aunt Mary is Margaret's favorite," Tyler observed, watching his daughter run into her aunt's arms whenever she visited. "It's because I let her do whatever she wants," Mary Elizabeth admitted, laughing. "That's why she's the favorite," Isabella said. The family had found its perfect balance. Each member knew their role and contributed to the group's harmony. Differences of opinion still arose, but they were resolved through dialogue and understanding. Walter, who had learned to value listening over imposing his will, became the wise patriarch the family had always needed. He divided his time between caring for his great-granddaughter, playing the tambourine, and telling stories about the past. Frank continued teaching and had become the music director at the school where he worked. He always included his family's story in his composition lessons, showing students how personal experiences could turn into art. Melissa found complete fulfillment as a mother, grandmother, and artist. Her paintings depicting the family's history were displayed in a gallery in Austin and drew attention for their sensitivity and technique. Catherine, now 75, remained the heart of the family. Her book had become a local reference on family reconciliation, and she received invitations to give talks in other towns. The old radio still worked perfectly and had become a family heirloom. Little Margaret loved pressing the buttons and turning the dial, as if she instinctively understood the importance of that device to her family. 10 years after the discovery of the tapes, when Margaret turned 9, the family organized a grand celebration. It marked a decade of reunion and reconciliation. The entire community of Savannah was invited to the party, which included musical performances, an exhibition of Melissa's paintings, the launch of the second edition of Catherine's book, and a special tribute to Margaret, the grandmother who had made it all possible. 10 years ago, our family was broken, Tyler said during his speech. Today, we're more united than ever. 10 years ago, I was a bitter, proud man, Walter added. Today, I'm just a happy grandfather and great-grandfather. 10 years ago, I thought I'd never see my father again, Melissa said. Today, I know we'll never be apart again. The celebration lasted late into the night, filled with music, dancing, and deep emotion. Little Margaret, who already knew the family's story by heart, made sure to play the old radio for all the guests to hear. Great-Grandma Margaret is here with us, she said, with the wisdom of a child who grew up hearing stories about the power of family love. How do you know, sweetheart? Catherine asked. Because the radio only plays beautiful music when she's nearby, Margaret answered simply. And in that moment, everyone knew the little girl was right. Margaret, the grandmother, remained present in the family's life through the music, the memories, and the love she had planted, which continued to grow. The end. Now tell us what you thought of this story of family reconciliation. Do you believe true love always finds a way to bring people together? Leave your heartfelt thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other touching stories.